Welcome to another episode of IndieCent, everyone. I'm here with Capitalism, Socialism, Darkness, Marmite, Pineapple Sunset, and I'm your host, Dr. Pepper Fendham. Cyberpunk.
Okay, I like
socialism.
I like Dr. Pepper, so your name I started off with like, I'm not a fan of this doc, and then you saved it really quick.
I'm glad we could all enjoy that. Okay, welcome back to IndieCent. Today we are looking at the Enigma Machine. I accidentally said the wrong thing last time, and it said the Enigma Project, but it's a really generic name. Can you blame me? I'm sorry, though. I fucked up. I'm tired. And I'm not going to apologize much, because I stepped on an L in the week before we recorded this, so, you know, fuck it. I've earned some right to just say fuck it. I had to get a tetanus shot. It was really fun. Video game.
What are they?
Bad.
Why are they?
Why did you commit suicide? I can't believe you commit suicide.
How are they?
You guys need to catch up on your Neil Breen.
Wasn't he the doctor from Half-Life?
I'm disappointed in all of you. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the recent news and get this show on the road. Oh boy, we got a lot. Let's start off with the story on mobile gaming, because everything's about to become very bad very quickly. So Google introduced Pay Plus recently, and it looks bad all over. The gist of it is that if you're a developer, and I should mention that service is not all just games but apps in general. Yeah, if you make for it, how much you make depends on how much people play with your app, which is bad news for any indie developer who isn't making psychological warfare garbage or like really repetitive stuff you want to replay over and over. If you're not making games like that, you're screwed. And Apple, of course, it's not clear what Apple Arcade's payment plan is. Apparently, Apple is paying devs first to make something for them, and then they make additional money somehow. We're not sure how. We think it involves witchcraft. But if I had to guess, it's probably the exact same shit Google's doing, because it's Apple. And I should also mention two things that are important to remember before you even try Apple Arcade. The Apple News Service underpaid those who took part in it, as what I've been hearing from around the web. And Apple is currently in the process of completely nuking the software scene from orbit by forcing people developing on Macs to basically pay them money for the privilege to do so. So everything's terrible. And I fucking called it.
From what I've heard, it sounds like I don't think any payment details have gone out about Apple Arcade.
Oh, they haven't.
But from what I've heard, just from people who spoke to some developers who were pitched on it, is that the terms they were offered were not very good. Kind of makes one wonder if different teams of developers got different offers to get their games on Apple Arcade. Like if the big ones got better deals than some of the other ones who turned them down got offered.
I think it's more like some were more desperate than others, or some are already wedged into the mobile scene and are just making content because that's what works for them. And other developers just aren't in that same, and they have a different idea of what proper compensation is, as in getting proper compensation, because the mobile market is fucking garbage. and usually survives solely on microtransactions.
Which is sort of a big thing. Well, if obviously, because we now have the microtransactions sort of and backlash really gathering pace. I think now actually any game with microtransactions is now banned in the country of Belgium.
I honestly don't think that's true. I think it's more anything with loot boxes is banned.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, the thing is, people will go. I think obviously once you start getting the loot crate thing out of the way, people will start attracting microtransactions, because I think it's always been this sort of bugbear for, well, particularly console gaming, but also mobile phone gaming. So I mean, it'll be interesting. I think generally sort of most mobile phone games are sort of, unless you've got somebody who's very dedicated to how the game is made, are pick up, put down, usually sort of make as much money off the player as soon as possible before they lose interest. So this is only adding to it.
Yeah, I really don't like this, because the basic idea of how this Play Pass and Arcade are working is that you pay a monthly subscription of $5, I believe, for both of them, to get access to a big library of stuff, which just gives me flashbacks to how the entire indie movie scene and indie music scenes got completely destroyed by corporations. So, you know, I'm not feeling good about this. I care much less about how much the consumer's getting for the price, and more about how much people actually making the stuff are getting paid. Because now this is just a way to make the platform more valuable to people than the actual software. The same shit that Netflix did, the same shit that every other single movie or TV making company is currently doing right now, and slowly turning TV and movie streaming back into cable again. It's just like, it's bad all over in the long run, extremely bad. I do not hate any developer who took this deal with Apple or Google, because you got to get what you can get, just like with the Epic situation. But in the long term, it's bad. Much worse than the Epic situation, I should add, by a fucking mile. I don't like where gaming is going, is what I'm saying. God.
It kind of just goes without saying, but it's like the only thing I can really add to it is just, I swear I'm not jumping ahead to what have we been playing early. But just in the last week I've played 2 things, and one of them was the Enigma Machine, which took an hour. And there's another game named Globesweeper, which is a 3D Minesweeper. It's alright. But there's an achievement in it for like beating the biggest possible level, so I've played it for about 8 hours. I would really strongly recommend the Enigma Machine. And the idea that under this system it's like, so hey, I'm the guy who made Globesweeper. I made 8 times what that guy did. No.
No.
I'm not even done with Globesweeper. It's fucking Free Cell Quest all over again.
It's a giant cash grab for the most they can get, and these companies are realizing that the best they can do is just control the entire platform itself. I'm not though liking the way things are going, is what I'm saying.
I mean, the fact that Nintendo, the sort of venerable sort of grandfather of video gaming, has sort of gone, yeah, even we need to get into the mobile gaming market, is sort of a bellwether of where sort of gaming as a medium is going, because they're making a lot of gotcha crap. Yeah, and it's like, really, even you, Nintendo, you're doing this, really? Okay.
There's not a lot to say about it other than just be prepared if entire indie studios suddenly disappear. Pay attention to these trends, because then you'll know why they've disappeared. This is just bad for everyone in the long run, and it's only going to get worse. And I really hope these 2 services fail. Oh, and on a side note, I hate how every fucking thing on the internet these days is a fucking subscription service. Jesus Christ. It's really bad because it's designed to obfuscate how much you're actually paying these companies. So instead of just having a one-time thing and bam, it's done, and you can easily do math around that, now you don't realize just how much you're spending until you see it all aggregated in a total. It's very sneaky, and a lot of people just don't realize it.
If you want to hear our full thoughts on subscription services, then for just $10 a month, you can listen to IndieCent After Dark, where we go into way more depth on all these issues. You get behind-the-scenes content. There's a quiz. I don't know.
That's just, well, the big difference between subscription services and Patreon is that Patreons are made by people who just don't have money and need to get it somehow, or Trigger.
Rather than two of the most valuable companies in the universe.
Yeah, video games. Let's move on to the second story and get this news part done pretty quick, because this is also going to be a quick one. So there's this indie game you may have heard of called Heartbeat. It looks really cute. Don't play it. It turns out the developer is a transphobe, and so is their girlfriend. They are TERFs. And they have an entire fucking Discord dedicated to being huge TERFs. People have not been taking this well, and recently a developer among that group named Syl decided to cut ties with them. Imagine just hating trans people so much, you basically destroy your reputation and lose a lot of your friends in the process. Oh god. I hate it.
Rules.
Yeah. They're gonna get short-term cash from TERFs defending them because they're actually reverse review bombing this game right now and using a fucking suicide rate meme because they're garbage people and I hate them. But eventually that's gonna run out, and the usual reactionaries are gonna move on to the next big thing people are mad about, and just like, I don't know what their future plans are, because you can't.
I'm sure someone like Netflix will come along and like publish a sequel to what's it called?
Heartbeat.
Make a sequel to a Heartbeat RPG called Triggered RPG.
That's very original. It's never been done before.
It'll make them $1 zillion.
Yeah. It has been just a fucking parade of idiot developers lately. I've actually lost count because of the overlap with stuff on YouTube with like fucking Pro Jared. I almost for a minute there forgot about what the Ion Fury devs did, but then but thankfully I remembered and think they're still trash. I don't even remember what the tally is. Let's see, it was them. Pro Jared became the most awful human being alive. There's his recent Heartbeat stuff, and there's a lot of stuff in the middle there that I've just washed over me. Not to mention all the mass accusations of people in the industry doing assault and general bullying. So, you know, video games.
And that's just the last few months.
Last few weeks, more like.
Oh, God. Oh, lovely, thank you.
Oh, that guy from Nicholas as well. Tyrone Rodriguez.
Who?
Tyrone Rodriguez, the guy who works, kind of the head of Nicholas. Mainly known for their ports of indie stuff.
Oh, that douchebag who stole the rights of Cave Story from the actual developer.
Yep. I finally have a moral excuse to stop playing The Binding of Isaac.
Even the Binding of Isaac guy is cutting ties with them. He's working on a new project with someone else now. Yeah. Only the finished ports that the actual employees at that company were working on are going to be released, and then that's that. So yeah.
You have to be real. I feel like you have to be really bad for the guy who made Super Meat Boy and The Binding of Isaac to say, "No, you're too offensive."
I'm stepping away from this.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, he wasn't trying to be offensive with his games. He's just a white guy. And, you know, things are funny to white guys. Let's see. Poop. Child abuse.
Racism. That's a big one.
Oh, yeah. Fetuses. Abortion. Okay, you get the picture. Although I honestly think he was trying to work through something with The Binding of Isaac. It's kind of a mix with that one.
Yeah.
It's like the Neil Breen of video games.
Who is Neil Breen? I don't recognize the name.
Oh my god, you don't?
I'm sorry, but no, who is he?
Please Google that man. He's amazing.
What's he done?
Some of the worst movies that have ever existed.
Ah.
He's a fucking lunatic. It's amazing.
Oh god, haven't it? Oh, wow.
I have killed 500 million humans.
Oh god,
Anyways,
he's in his own films.
We are getting this episode out fast, so thankfully our what have you been playing section will at least be short. So let's go ahead and skip to that. I got the timer with me. Who wants to go first?
Me.
Alright, go.
I've been playing 2 games this week. Well, actually, really has been this week. So, first one is Kingdom Hearts 3. I finished Kingdom Hearts 3. The ending of Kingdom Hearts 3 is Tetsu Nomura being Tetsu Nomura, and that's pretty much what I'll leave it at. The thing that annoys me is, oh my god, there's clearly somebody at Square Enix has gone, let's see how we can make a little bit more money out of this, because the ending sort of fits into this thing like a Tetris block. And obviously you got the DLC, which is called Rebind, which is out at some indeterminate point this year. Will clearly slot into a gap into the game and sort of show things, one must assume, from another point of view. That said, Kingdom Hearts 3 is probably the best game I've played this year so far. And that's not an exaggeration. It's also it's the game I bought PlayStation 4 for. It's the first game I've actually finished this year, which sort of indicates I really haven't been playing enough video games this year. And it just ends on an emotionally resonant and interesting. Sort of the last 4 hours of Kingdom Hearts are sort of, I can only describe as a video game equivalent of that scene in 2001 where you just go through a light gate and it is just complete madness. I'm not going to sort of go into detail on it, but it's got some of the most head-scratchingly, insanely brilliant moments in video gaming for sort of 2019 so far. Which sort of brings me on to what I've been playing otherwise this week, because hey, I finished Kingdom Hearts 3, I've been playing Nier Automata. And Nier Automata is the second best game I've played this year, if only because I played an hour of it and I died. I was cut in half by chains, I was cut in half by giant industrial equipment, and I got an ending. But for those who've been underneath a stone for the last 2 and a bit years, Nier Automata is a game about robots having emotions and stuff, and it is the prettiest game that sort of I played this year, and 9S is adorable, and that's what I've been playing this week.
All right, that was short. I'll go ahead and go next and get my 2 out of the way. Due to the aforementioned nail in the foot, I decided, fuck it, I'm just going to play Game Dev Tycoon for an entire week, and I did that.
Hey!
Game Dev Tycoon is my personal hell. I've spent nearly 250 hours in it by now, and I'll probably be spending much more as the years go on. I will never be free. Also, don't install mods for it, or you will definitely be there forever. It is the worst game ever made, and I can't stop playing it. Other than that, I did try a few games, but only decided to stay with one. Since Greedfall came out recently and is a fucking colonial nightmare, but everyone was interested in it because we all want another BioWare game that we're never going to get. I decided to look at what this studio has done before this, because I've actually had my eye on them for a while. I've just never gotten around to actually playing their stuff. They've made 3 previous games, Mars Warlogs, Bound by Flame, and Technomancer. I have tried Mars Warlogs, and it started with a scene where a kid is nearly raped in a prison camp, so I decided, you know what, I don't want to play any more of this. And I also know for a fact that it was extremely rushed when it first came out, and the last 7 maps basically, as someone on TV Tropes put it, tried to condense the entirety of the Dune novel into it. So that sounds like a train wreck. And I did try Bound by Flame, their second game, for a while, and I liked the combat. But I also noticed that they have really bad difficulty curve in all their games, where if you don't play on easy, you're going to die constantly, because they can't seem to decide if they want this to be a simple action RPG or Dark Souls. But it was promising, but I decided to quit because I discovered there's only 2 female party members in the entire game. One of them is evil, and if you do a good thing later in the game that I'm always going to do because I don't play games to be an evil bastard, that character, the most interesting character in the game ends up dying, and it just becomes a fucking sausage fest. Now, I'm not interested in that. But the Technomancer actually clicked with me, and I would recommend this one. I have managed to finish the first chapter out of 4, and I'm surprisingly impressed with it. It's still got a lot of jank because spiders are clearly working on a budget with all their games and trying to get the most out of it. But it works better than the other 2 by a huge margin. It has a much more interesting setting. It returns to where the Mars Warlogs world, which takes place in the future on Mars, where corporations basically rule over the planet, and nobody's quite sure what the deal with Earth is at this point, because, long story, a lot of shit's happened to the point that Mars has its own mythology, including their own, Jedi figures in the form of the Technomancers, people with the ability to produce electricity in their body and weaponize it. And it's really interesting because it's taking place... The villains of the original Mars Warlogs are now... that's where you start out as a member of that society and a hero and such. And it basically becomes about a guy in a fascist society ending up having to bash Fash. But it has probably the best combat from their game so far. You get 3 different stances. Rogue stance, which is sort of like playing Ultimate Spider-Man, but with a knife and a gun. A warrior stance where you get a staff and get a lot of crowd control. And a guardian stance where you get a shield and a mace that does a lot of damage. You get cool electric powers. You get... The party members in this game are actually really fun so far. And I like that the first chapter does some interesting things to kind of trick you into thinking it's going to be one thing, but it ends up being another. It's very competently done. It's fun to play through. There's a lot of side quests. It looks fairly good, even though the animations during dialogue scenes are extremely lacking. And I even though you can only play as male character this time, even though Bound by Flame let you choose, there is a gay romance option, and it's actually fairly good, which is cool. He's missing one arm. You get to give him a cyborg arm, which is neat. It's just a pretty solid RPG. I know of a few things that are going to be happening later in it. I'm actually interested to see that. I think this is going to be the best game Spiders ever does, because if Greedfall is anything to go by, they're just going to keep getting edgier and edgier and more into their white guy het bullshit. And I'm not interested in ever seeing that. And Technomancer is where they actually got the balance right, so... It should be fairly cheap, I think $20, so I'd say look into it if you're looking for a good action RPG. And that is what I've been playing. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Go for it.
So, I've just been in the game review pit right now. I I mentioned last time I had my Crystar review. Since then, I've had my review of Kill la Kill If, the Kill la Kill Arena Fighter published by Arxis.
Oh.
That went up. That just went up last week. And I'm reviewing 2 more games at the moment, so I'll have those coming. So those have pretty much been occupying my time. The only games that I've been filling the void with are basically 2 mobile games. The first of which is called... What's it called? It's I never remember the name, but it's a mobile game from Konami called Pixel Puzzle Collection, it's Picross. It's Picross with Konami properties, and Picross is good. So, yeah. It's got like hundreds and hundreds of puzzles, it's free to play, and there are no microtransactions at all.
How old is it? It's got to be pretty ancient if there are no microtransactions in a mobile Konami game.
I heard about it for the first time like last year. I think it came out last year.
That is bizarre.
I can check a Google Play.
Considering who the guy in charge there is.
It has ads for other Konami games, but only on the main menu, and it's not even like the video ads that you can't skip. It's just like they're there on the page, and then you go into a puzzle, and you're doing the puzzle. So yeah, that's been fun, because I like Picross, so that's been a good way to fill the time. The other one I've been playing is Downwell, which came out...
I remember that.
Hey.
Which came out like years ago, but I think I might own it, but I've never gotten around to it. I probably got in a bundle or something. But it was free on Android like sometime last week, so I was like, yeah, I'll pick it up and try it out because it's free. And it is really well suited for mobile. Just like the vertical nature of that game and the screen, it links up really well. And like you can play it with both your thumbs. Like you have one button that jumps and shoots when you're in the air, and then you have another that can just like move you to the right or to the left. So yeah, I haven't gotten very far. I've only gotten like the farthest I've gotten is like the second cavern. It's like a run based. You're just falling down a well, and you're just a little guy, and he can shoot out of the bottom. He shoots out of his butt. Basically.
You have gun boots.
Yeah, you have gun boots, and you can get like you can find spots where you can get upgrades, where you can change like the kind of style of shooting. And it's a pretty good. It's well suited for mobile. So I haven't played a lot of that, but I've been having fun with it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've been playing. Let me see if I can pull up when. Okay, Pixel Puzzle Collection. Looks like it released. Yeah, released October 8th, 2018.
That is weird. Is there DLC in that? Like, nope. I have a Mahjong game from, I think, Sunsoft that had that locked off the majority of the Mahjong tables on it until you paid for them separately, for example.
Nope, it has hundreds of puzzles. That's it. There is no... There is a timer for, like, boss levels, but there's nothing you can pay to make that go faster.
That is bizarre.
Yeah, okay. It just has ads for other Konami games, and they're pretty unobtrusive.
Okay, go ahead and go, Elmo.
Hey, I have 3 things. I need to rush a bit because, not to toot my own horn, but I listened back to last episode, and I did a really shit job of explaining why I liked some of the stuff that I'd played. I think it's mainly just because I played Night in the Woods, then Little Nightmares, then Celeste, and currently they're all on my end of year best list, so spoilers for that. But yeah, I feel like I did a really bad job of explaining that, so I just want to really quickly touch on 2 of them again. Machinarium was the first one, because I kept mentioning that Yosef, the little robot you control, is really cute, but I didn't really say anything about why. So it's the puzzle game from the dudes who did Samarost 1 and 2, quirky point-and-click puzzles. And Yosef is just... all the characters, none of them talk, they just have like grunts and gasps and squeaks and things. But Yosef is just adorable, and the art style is adorable, because every time Yosef meets another robot, usually the robot that he's seeing is like a jerk, like a villain robot. And there's this little like hand-drawn black and white Flash-style animation that plays in a thought bubble above Yosef's head. And like the first big bad robot you meet, it's just like Yosef was just playing with like a bucket and spade, and then this big robot just stomps on over and kicks over his sandcastle and puts the bucket on his head, and then walks away going, and it's stupid, but every character has that. It's amazing. And every character also has their own little laugh like that. I didn't realise until right at the end of the game, but Yosef has an idle animation where another thought bubble appears and he daydreams about just the fun times he spent with his robot girlfriend. And sometimes they're going to like a robot paintball where they're just
5 minutes.
Yep, where they're just squirting oil at each other or at their own faces. And every daydream ends with them going, heh hee heh hee. And it's this weird, adorable robot Beavis and Butthead. The second game I didn't do dirty was... what the hell was that? Was Little Nightmares. Just an incredible atmosphere and some great set pieces. Mandatory comparison to Limbo. Let's see. With Limbo, the bad guy was more like oppressive loneliness and nihilism.
It's about depression.
Yep. Little Nightmares is like Limbo, but with capitalism. Yay!
And depression.
Yep. Because, even though the story is relatively... There's
about
a lot
depression.
There's a lot of woo mysteriousness, but at the same time, the areas in the game are, you've got the prison, then you've got the lair where there's this creepy, long-armed janitor who watches over these kids who are the same size as you and don't seem very happy to be here. And then there's the kitchen, and then there's the guest area where there's these giant, morbidly obese guests who, if they see you, they will, like, drop everything and scramble on the floor to try and get you. It's pretty easy to figure out like what's going on. And also I'm massively biased because obviously I really like Little Nightmares, but it's not so much done in a body shaming, these guys are fat because they're the bad guys way. It's more like...
Elmo, you have used half of your time.
Yep. I've only got one more game after this. It's more like they're the embodiment of like greed and gluttony. So... Also, yeah, just the enemy design's great. The janitor is one character who's blind, and it's not because he doesn't have eyes, it's because the skin is sagging away from his face, and it's covering his eyes and most of his nose. It's gross and wonderful. The big thing I've been playing is Celeste. It might be the most perfect thing I've played in recent memory, in that I just literally can't find any flaws with it at all. The story, the controls, the level design, the soundtrack, the bonus challenges, the characters, the writing, everything is like an 11 out of 10. Also, it makes angry piss babies mad, so big thumbs up there. A big notable thing about Celeste is that it allows you to set your own difficulty, because there's definitely areas that are just as difficult as any bit of like Super Meat Boy or The End Is Nigh. But at any given time, you can just turn on assist mode, and it's just like, hey, do you want to slow the game down by 50%? Sure. You want to give yourself infinite air dashes? You want to just straight up make yourself entirely invincible? Fine. Do you want to just skip this level if you're not having fun? Go ahead. Be my guest. And it doesn't disable the achievements or turn on like a big mocking easy mode or anything. It's just a feature. And I used the 50% slowdown thing to beat some of the really challenging bonus levels, because every level has 2 bonus sides and they're really difficult. I think that's about... No, I played Kind Words as well. Don't want to mention it too much because I feel like I might pick it for a grab bag.
Yeah, that'd be a good pick.
Pretty interesting concept, because it's like you receive letters from people around the world who have written them, and it's just people who, you know, could use some kind words of encouragement or comfort, and you can write your own letters, and that's it. Oh, and it has some pretty chill music.
I have a question about that.
Yep.
How many racist, anti-Semitic messages did you come across? Because I was watching Giant Bomb play it on stream like close after it came out, and they came across some pretty bad stuff in that.
Honestly, I haven't found anything that I would deem like offensive yet. I did have one guy who just was repeatedly asking about Swedish rock metal bands. But,
Oh, so
but
you
that was it.
so you met DJ.
Yeah. But yeah, that I haven't found.
Remember when he pretended to get drunk just to call me shit?
Oh.
Good times.
I actually, I felt really nervous because I've put out 2 questions on Kind Words, and I was half expecting that at least one of them would be like, go fuck yourself. And instead, it's just... It at the moment, it's what it's advertised to be, which is good, because it was a really nice idea. And I'm glad that for now, it seems to be working pretty well.
Okay, that's good. Because as soon as I heard the premise, I was like, oh, this will go poorly.
Yeah.
Chat roulette, but you pay for it.
I could get this for free by logging on to Twitter.
That's all for me.
Good to hear that it isn't completely widespread.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I went over time. I'm sorry.
You should be.
Okay.
Okay, let's go ahead and get on to our main discussion, the Enigma Machine. I'm going to say right now, I'm probably going to be... Well, I'm not going to be in the minority. I've heard some of your thoughts in our DMs for one, but this might be the first game I've chosen for an episode of IndieCent that I kind of didn't dig as much as I thought I would. That's rare for me, because I usually have a really good hitting average here. Like, the first episode we ever did with back when Lamar was around was Masochistia, and I still think, damn. Even the games I don't necessarily like This Is the Police, I respect a lot. But this one, though, get into it, we'll have to get into spoilers, so let's save that for later. The basic premise is that this is a game by one Jamie Gavin, who calls himself Enigma. I don't think they actually have a real development studio. Since this seems to be mostly him. Either his sister or his wife did some art for him. That cool fake box art you can see on like the Steam page and the itch.io page. And they had one separate composer and got some free stuff from around. But this was like almost entirely him, if the credits are correct. Which is impressive, but it also explains why this game is so fucking jank. The premise is that you are playing a training piece of training software for Fade agents, and you are trying to decontaminate an AI, or at least trained to do that. And you are basically guided through this by intelligence named DEMOS. That is the basic setup, but it becomes clear there's more going on because, of course, there is. This game got released near Halloween in 2018, but then I figured out what the answer was, and I was kind of disappointed.
I think I might be like in the opposite camp, because I kind of started thinking, yeah, looks like a pretty mediocre / average low polygon type 3D glitchy-looking horror game, and then I finished it thinking, well, that was a really fun experience.
This game actually made me vomit. Kind of.
Oh.
So I found out this game gives me motion sickness. Apart from that, I really, really enjoyed it, but sort of I did spend several minutes sort of just with my head between my legs going, I probably shouldn't be playing this because it's making me motion sick.
I had a similar problem as I kept playing it, especially when you get to the last few areas. I noticed this has a similar look to it as that one terrible Halloween grab bag game we did with Sans Undertale. Yeah, it's similar to Dark Place, but unlike the Dark Place, it seems to understand how to optimize that sort of graphical style better, and I was able to enjoy the world more, even though, like, it still ran pretty for me. I'm gonna have to make so many awkward cuts.
What other games have given you motion sickness? Spyro the Dragon gave my friend a seizure.
Just this, I'm serious, I think it was because obviously, the visual style of this game is that very glitchy sort of, I want to almost call it sort of anti-Vaporwave. You know how Vaporwave is sort of a really relaxed, chilled out, sort of liminal sort of space sort of feel. This was very much the opposite. It was like the floor is melting into the ceiling and sort of things are very glitchy and...
Yeah, it reminded me of like the games of Kitty Horror Show, like Anatomy, except it doesn't work here because this game has a very solid story structure, so it's actually distracting when things start to degrade. I also don't like that, like, the lighting doesn't seem to work properly on high settings for me. A lot of places were too dark and the lights would just suddenly come on. That was a little odd. There's just little texture issues, stuff like that.
I spent way too long in level 1 just trying to get up the stairs because there's no light.
It reminded me a lot
hit a switch. It tells you to hit a switch.
No, I mean, I hit the first switch, but then when you go up
there's a second switch.
Oh, I did not see the second switch.
Tell you what it reminded me of. Remember that game we played a few months back that was made by like the one genius Russian auteur sort of guy?
Oh, I'm really glad you brought that up. What was the Vaporwave one?
Oh. No, the Russian... the
Last Dogma one?
It reminded me
of the best somebody game ever made.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Last Dogma.
I'm only saying that half ironically. I genuinely love that game.
It reminded me of the same thing because it's like a lot of it did look like really sort of, you know, basic assets, and it sort of did feel like that base sort of middle late 90s sort of feel to the graphical aspect.
I actually didn't get that because, like, style-wise, it is trying to purposely invoke the 90s. Like, if you look at that fake box art again, if you look carefully at it, you realize that's a slip-in for a cassette tape holder.
So it's even earlier than that, but...
Yeah, it's trying to purposely invoke the 80s and 90s in every way, from even the subject matter to the layout of the computer you're using before you go into a level to the levels themselves, which are which are sort of like a much more detailed Alone in the Dark look, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see what you're coming with that, but...
It kind of reminds me of how Paratopic tried to do things, except it is not optimized well. I don't know what's going on with this, or that Dark Place game with Sans Undertale, but for some reason they're they're not built quite right, so there's always a lot of lag when there shouldn't be, because it doesn't look that graphically complex, but there's clearly something going on that is making it like process harder than most games like it.
Particularly sort of the sections on the computer which have this whole sort of glitch graphical style. I mean, bizarrely enough, it sort of reminded me in sections of there is a artist, the artist who used to work with the band Nine Inch Nails, Rob Sheridan, who obviously is probably one of the best American artists in sort of, you know, glitch artwork, and it sort of reminded me a lot in that sort of that very sort of, you know, the idea of the computer, this sort of imperfect computer terminal sort of style stuff. So that particularly, I think, of all the aspects in the game, I think that captured the sort of the 80s-ish-ness best.
Of course, I would argue that a lot of the style is a problem. I should mention that usually when I pick a game for the show, I go off by initial style impression. Like, Masokisia had this cool, like, Hellboy sort of look to it with all the ugly character models. This Is the Police was fairly obviously unique because it was all cutouts. You had Tokyo Dark's mixture of, like, the kind of bad-looking character portraits in, like, the trailer and stuff, but the really impressive-looking environmental design, and so on and so forth. I get attracted to stuff that looks interesting, and this box art and the screens that came with it instantly caught my attention, so... But I'm used to these games usually paying off in a way where there's more than just the style there, but that didn't happen here, and I probably should have been worried when I looked at the itch.io comments and noticed that they said, oh, there's going to be a Mac build, but apparently there was never a Mac build. And also, it seems like it hasn't really been updated that much since it first released. So, like, the problems they were trying to deal with, like, the issues where if you're playing this on Windows, if you're just playing it in general, because it's always on Windows, for some unlucky few like myself, if you go to back to the computer monitor to input a code, which you have to do in each level to progress, you will discover there's no way to back out, and you may get a glitch where the cursor lights up, and even if you try to input anything, it won't accept anything, and you have to shut down the entire game and start it up again, and then go through the long level intro yet again. I did that like 7 times on level 3 alone. So yeah, that was fun.
I'm sorry because it's not strictly related, but it's just really bugging me now. What was the name of that Vaporwave game we played a few months back?
Broken Reality.
Broken Reality.
Such a good game.
Sorry, it's been bugging me.
I think the problem with this game is that it is like a triumph of... I wouldn't say just style. It's not just style over substance. It's style and sort of, the feel of it over sort of everything else. And it's like...
it does have another substance besides the style, and the problem is that the substance sucks.
Yeah, let's be blunt here. This is the sort of thing that... What was that? Oh god, it's a Ray Bradbury story, and I've completely forgotten the title of it. It's that one with... I just know
Fahrenheit 451.
What's it called? No, I'm Up No Mouth and I Must Scream.
That's Harlan Ellison.
Oh shit! Sorry.
Are you talking about? Are you talking about the Electric Sheep book?
No, that's Philip K. Dick.
Dick.
But no, it
Danny,
does.
Why did you not laugh at that? That was genius. There you go. His name is Dick.
But no, it did feel very much... The problem is that, like, behind this very, very interesting, glitchy thing is pretty much the most generic sort of... I mean, I could see, like, some of the twists coming, even with my head between my legs and sort of trying not to vomit from the whole...
The first moment the computer mentions... I don't remember that. I was like, oh, we're doing this, huh?
Oh, we're doing this. We're doing the sort of...
No, let's not spoil it, because I would like people to check this out just for the aesthetics alone. But in that case, I do have to warn them that if you have hearing issues, this game hates you.
Yep. And if you have motion sickness, this game hates you.
Level 2 is especially bad because there's a puzzle where you have to get part of a code from an audio device after you input codes, but the audio distorts a little each time, so when you get to the third part of it, it was actually impossible for me to make out the first time, where I couldn't make out if it was saying any sort of number or letter. And I tried going back to the computer to see if I could, like, if there was like something I was missing, and then I encountered the glitch and I had to restart the level again. Yay! And then it gave me a different code so that I was actually able to understand, so I could continue. I think that's the only code in the game that is not that changes every time you play it. Because, like, the code in level 3 is definitely the same for everybody.
Yeah.
I checked out playthrough. It was the exact same code I got, but not for level 2, because I think they realized, oh fuck, people may not be able to hear this. I guess we'll just let them do it as many times as they can until they can. And of course, there's the motion sickness stuff, because this game gets to be a lot, even for me. Like, there is a part where it glitches out a lot, and it looks cool, until you try to move around it, and sometimes textures will just pop up in front of you and make it impossible to see what's ahead of you when you really need to see what's ahead of you at that point in the game. Just like, it's a lot of really cool ideas, but they didn't really fine-tune just how this would actually be to play, which is important for a game.
Yeah, this was not a pleasant experience towards the end. It was like, This is very strange, because this is like, I have played games with really glitchy. I mean, for example, I had no problems with Broken Reality, which is quite glitchy visual in places, and obviously I play a lot of really graphically intense games, and yeah, this is the first time a game has actually given me motion sickness. So for me, it will just go, no, this is not something I would play if you have like any form of motion sickness.
Yeah, I didn't even get this from like Paratopic or Anatomy. I think they're clearly inspired by games like those, but they don't quite I don't think Gavin quite understands how to make that style not like overwhelming to certain people. Because like, I'm just lucky there wasn't any color blindness issues with this, because I have a feeling that would have been a complete game killer for me.
I feel like kind of matching up the tolerance for how much your eyes can take. About, like, I'd say maybe 20 minutes of this game is about 2.5 hours of broken reality.
Oh yeah.
So,
Danny, Danny, did this game make you sick?
No, not really. I never really had any of the problems that any of y'all really had. The only time that I did think the glitch got in the way was
last level?
Yeah, the last level, but it never actually like caused me to game over. The only time
it didn't for me. What caused me to game over during that part was just not looking around the corner properly.
Yeah, I got a game over there, and what I did the next time was I just got there faster, and the enemy was basically further away.
I thought they just spawned right there.
The enemy spawns in the same place every time, but depending on how far you get close to it, depends on when the enemy starts moving. I should also mention I didn't like how the gun was used in this game, because it's not really introduced properly. Like, when you first start this game, you think it's just going to be a basic adventure game, even though you do see the gun in the screenshot. But then when the actual combat starts in the last level, it's really bad. And the game just assumes, you know how to play first-person shooters. And most people who would play a game like this might not play first-person shooters. And, like, it would make sense if this was, like, built in, like, what was that, the build engine? Where, like, yeah, every game basically controlled the same. But no, this was made in Unity, and in a way that not a lot of games in Unity are actually made or even look remotely like. So, like, it was a bit alienating for me at first, and I think this would have been a real problem with more casual players that would be interested in something like this just for the aesthetics.
My only issue with the gun is that I thought the game ended before I had to use it.
Elmo, have you never played Undertale before?
Yeah, but there's a difference between a game, like, closing and being like the boss fight in Undertale, where you have a boss fight against a character who you clearly can beat, but if you lose, it shuts the game down. There's a difference between that and like Masakizia or Doki Doki Literature Club, where when you get to the end, the game just shuts itself.
Okay, I can kind of see the confusion in context of when that first happens, but if you thought the game was over because you keep dying on the last level, no. Then I would have been upset.
It's just like the first time the game closes, because it's mandatory that the game closes at least once. Wait, actually, come to think of it, I might be completely wrong. I shot the enemy once, and then the game just like completely froze and kicked me out. And then I had to go back in, and it was like, destroy the terminals. Did that happen with you, or did I just like die and not realize it?
Yeah, I think you're supposed to get kicked out there even if you do things right. Because, then the thing happens where it introduces the real last level.
Yeah.
I think we should go ahead. I want to say we should get into spoilers, but we have not talked about the main game for that long.
Yeah. It's an hour long. There's not
I
much
do want to say the music's really good, like all the aesthetics. They got that right. It's just... I just wish it was fun to play.
Yeah.
Like, not even the puzzle solving is that good. It's all based around gathering codes. And in the first level, it makes sense. It's you just gotta get to a place and understand how the controls work. Second level, that audio puzzle did piss me off, but the others are fairly clever. The third, I thought was kind of dumb, but it had to be there for story reasons. I don't think they properly planned out how to best integrate story and the mechanics, because it turns out I just decided to warp to level 1, and I ended up skipping ahead through a lot of dialogue because I was supposed to go 3, then 2, then 1, but nope. Just zoomed to level 1, and I could get to 2 and 3 that way, and the dialogue played out of order. Game design.
So was this a demo for like a game in development? Because that's what
I don't think it's so much
like?
as a demo as a standalone game that is supposed to be advertising a bigger game coming down the line.
Okay, because
this is not just a demo. It's much too complicated to be just a demo.
Yeah, it seemed like I wouldn't know how they expand this into like a bigger game, if that's what they were trying to do.
I think they just introduced new scenarios within the concept they've established, but then I don't care about the scenarios because the concept they established is the most tired sci-fi concept involving robots I've ever seen in my entire life. This shit was played out in the 80s.
Kind of reminds me of File Maniac a bit, actually.
Yeah, this is really disappointing to me because I was expecting a lot more to what was going on than the thing they seemed to obviously be hinting towards, and they still treated it like a big fucking mystery. Let's just go ahead and get into spoilers on this one. Surprise, the corporation is bad.
What?
Corporation bad in video game?
You are the Blade Runner. If the Blade Runner was a Neuromancer, that's about it. And you're training to be a Blade Runner by basically they copied the AI of the first artificial intelligence that went fucking batshit, and so you're using this as practice to get used to decontaminating AI or androids, and by that I mean punishing androids that gain sentience.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't let you do that.
Oh my god, the start of level 3 made me so mad. It was so fucking grade school about it. It was just like, he's typing the words in incorrect spaces and they're coming out slowly like he's thinking about it. Ooh. And it's all lowercase. Oh, fucking.
But as if this feels very much like someone has, from the way that the AI works in this game, it feels like someone has sort of watched realistically 2001: A Space Odyssey and gone, how could I not make this AI memorable and interesting? let's make him type like an emo 16-year-old who is discovering emotions for the first time.
His nickname was Red, and blood is red. What does that mean?
If it is
and then you get and then at the end you get the fucking message from the corporation. And it's so nakedly evil. It's,
they go to 12
that was
mustaches.
a disappointment. It's like, oh, don't worry, it's not evil to murder robots, or is it? We're asking such fucking deep questions here in like 1980s grade school B-movie sci-fi hour.
I'm pretty sure that, what was it?
The greatest weapon is not the mind, but the gun.
But gun. I'm pretty sure Demolition Man was more profound and more, asked deeper questions in this game. And
I think what the thought process here is that the guy had real graphical and talent and wanted to do something cool with that. So he came up with the basic idea, but I don't think he had any ideas beyond that, and so we got the most bog standard concept for a sci-fi cyberpunk game in existence. I mean, it's so like, what's the point of this sort of game existing in a world where we have Observer, which is the same game but with a much bigger budget, cooler visuals, cooler sound, and a much more interesting story, and is actually really effective in the horror instead of the statue in the garden suddenly coming to life and slowly walking at you looking like something from fucking Reboot.
How?
It looks like something from Reboot, doesn't it? It looks like...
It's just the thing is that, like, ironic that we should mention The Last Dogma, because The Last Dogma, which is pretty much, I think, the thing we can compare this to, which is, you know, a personal project done by one guy. They're not even in the same game, let alone the same ballpark. This is like, you got The Last Dogma is just this thing of beauty. Okay, it's weird and sort of individual.
It's jank as hell.
It's jank as hell, but...
Yeah, but like, it has vastly more interesting ideas at work.
Yeah.
I liked when I typed in gun and got a gun.
I actually did like that.
And I wish that I could have done that for other things.
I liked how it hinted how you could get gun, but I wonder if you could type in gun earlier in the game and then just get it right away. But the game would never comment on it because they clearly did not think anyone would think to do that. Or it just doesn't give it to you because it didn't think anyone would care to think to do that. Because it didn't take into account how a player may have knowledge of the game before they play it, because YouTube is a thing that exists and might try to see if they can break it and then be disappointed when it just doesn't work. You can't do a meta game like this where it like turns itself off and shit and it's like, oh, it's only a game, or is it? And not take this into account, because if you're thinking meta, the player's going to be thinking on so many levels ahead of you in that department. You've got to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like the most damning indictment that I can give of the story and the depth of the themes or lack thereof. Boy, I really like this game. but you know, that's from me. Yeah. So it's just, I thought it was a very... I don't think it accomplished any of the things that you're saying it didn't accomplish. But I also don't really think it was aiming for that much. I think it was like a short, hour-long, relatively generic kind of AI story.
No, that's the thing. I think it was because it's setting up an entire concept and universe that is going to make a completely different, much larger game around.
Oh.
Which is bad.
Yeah. As a standalone, like 1 hour project, this was fun. I'm not sure if I would play like the full version. I don't see at all how you turn this into like a bigger game.
You could. I could see it turning into a bigger game because that game already exists and it's called Observer. But like, yeah, you definitely could do Observer with this cool graphical style. I would be down for that. But you got to figure out what you want to do narrative-wise, because you're making what's basically an adventure game, and if an adventure game doesn't have a narrative or interesting lore to fall back on, it's gonna be underwhelming.
Danny, I really want to make you play The Last Dogma.
you would lose your mind at the motorcycle.
It's like, I will give it credit for, like, it does have all these incredible, like, visionary themes. And it
What if
just has,
Suda51 didn't have a budget?
Yeah. What if Suda51 teamed up with Digital Homicide to make the best game of all time?
That's actually not far off the mark.
Yeah, it's just like... Come and think of it, there's a nice contrast here between, like, one of these games is, like, pretty generic story and gameplay-wise and, you know, the integration of the gameplay and the story. It's a decent concept, it's decently executed, it's nothing special. But it's alright. And then the Last Dogma is like this incredible visionary asset flip. but it's, you know, it's definitely going places. It's all different strokes, but like I prefer a wildly creative mess over something like this where like on the surface it's really cool looking and I would like to see more stuff that looks like it. But I'd rather have more stuff that looks like it that has substance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we're not in a drought of games that look cool like this. Like, we have an entire PS1 like era sort of renaissance going on right now. There was actually a game I was considering to pick over this that was on Steam, but I decided not to because it was like 5 hours, which is a problem because it was Resident Evil survival horror send-up.
What was it?
I forgot what it was called, sadly.
Oh.
But, like, yeah, we have a lot of games like this coming out, so, like, if you want to make something like this, you need to at least have an idea there that's really interesting to keep people in, because just the style isn't going to cut it anymore, other than maybe some minor attention for a while, because you did a cool trick. This is the type of game that Pony Island was parodying before those games even existed. Just realize that. The You Killed Jesus moment is the end of the game where it's like, is it bad to kill robot? I don't know. But would you trust us, the evil corporation?
Can't believe you killed Jesus, you monster.
The thing is,
you didn't kill Jesus.
Yeah, just like how if you don't kill Jesus, it gives you the exact same text. Only it's just like, you didn't kill Jesus.
The Pony Island, the Hex guy is a fucking visionary.
Yeah.
The thing is with this game is that if you had somebody, if this guy visually, creatively, whatever, was like twinned with the guy who could actually write, this would have been pretty damn good. But the writing the writing and, to be honest, the motion sickness kills this game dead for me.
Yeah. I would actually recommend this with a big asterisk because it's short and cheap, and I think $5 is like a good price point for this. It could go a bit more, honestly, because like the aesthetics are really impressive. But I just think like if you have like issues with motion sickness or visibility or like don't have great hearing, you're gonna have a problem. The person when I was looking up stuff on YouTube for this, the one of the people who did an LP of this did complain in the description that they literally could not properly hear the last bit in that sound puzzle, for example. Like, if you don't have those problems, I think you should go ahead and try this, and you'll be kind of impressed with it. But there are honestly better options for this sort of game, like Paratopic. Obviously, Anatomy, anything Kitty Horror Show has done. The Last Dogma, obviously, everyone should play that. Oh god, I love that game.
I'm trying to think of like a comparison for like the sound quality, because I on the one hand I did get the code right the first time I tried it, but I was typing it in like, I have no idea if this is what I actually heard, and if this is wrong, I have no idea what I'm gonna change.
Let me tell you what I heard the first time I got to that part. I had no idea what that was. I thought it was 8, but it wasn't. I mean, if that's not 8, what is that?
Reminded me of like the mini games in which Five Nights at Freddy's was it? I think the second one, where there's like a voice in the background spelling "save them," but it just comes out like.
Yes. Sort of 32-bit sort of speech synthesis sort of era sound.
Ghostbusters!
I was doing Banjo-Kazooie voices.
Have you seen Steamed Hams, but it's Banjo-Kazooie? Oh, Steam? Mm-hmm, oh.
The Enigma Machine is not very good, but it looks cool, and you should give the developer money so maybe they'll make something better. That's my high praise. I feel like I was a bit hard on it, but like a lot of the problems I had could easily be corrected in another game if they just keep a lot of this in mind, or just get someone else on board who has a bit more experience with this. Like, there's promise here. It's just, you need another cook in that kitchen. Is what I'm thinking. But yeah, that's the Enigma Machine. I had a feeling this was going to be a short episode, and I'm fine with that. We need a short one every once in a while.
Oh, the one thing that I did think it did really well is I like it when things kind of very slowly build towards one kind of horror moment, and I liked how an hour in, it's like you haven't seen any other character in the entire game, and it gets to like, what, level 4, and you step outside with your crappy textured gun, and it just says, "Don't let your guard down." And I was like, oh god, I have to use the gun to shoot something. And
then shocks you with the reboot.
Yeah, and then I closed the door because I didn't want anything to... I wanted to have a place where I could stand and keep an eye on everything, but then I just started getting motion sick from like all of the graphical glitches. So I walked back inside, and this little red, badly animated AI robot thing walks towards you, and just because it's the first thing that I had seen move in hours, and I screamed.
I did not, because you know why? If you look at that's just a statue in the courtyard. If you look at the statue in the courtyard on level 3, you'll notice that it's starting to change color and it's turning into that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is stupid, because if you're in the Enigma Machine, you think you'd come up with something more terrifying than just statue.
And if you mouse over it, it says what the corruption level is.
Yep, that was the giveaway. And then I just started getting annoyed because it kept killing me on the final level and shutting the entire game off. And I already had so many bad memories of that from having to restart so much in level 3. I was just like, you know what? Big piece of constructive criticism. Do not do the meta thing with the next game. It will just piss people off like it did with me. Oh god. It would be so much better if you just restarted after like a brief screen to the start of level 4 instead of having to reboot the entire game. Actually, that's a similar complaint I had to Saturdays in that horror grab bag too, which would have been so much better if you didn't have to restart the entire game every time you died.
I completely forgot which game Saturdays was. Was that the one with Freddy Freaker?
It's the one that was in black and white and photos turned into sprites. And
the one with the tomatoes?
The one with the skeleton in the house, and you called him like Pedro or something.
The one with the two guys on a motorcycle? Can't remember any of their names. No.
Video games.
Spooky, scary skeleton.
That was the Enigma Machine. Let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be playing next time, and hopefully it will not be as disappointing as this was. What do you got, Danny?
I have a little game that came out last week that I haven't seen much attention given to it, but I kind of came across it on Twitter in passing and thought it looked neat. And kind of looking into it, seems like something that might be our speed. It's a game called Mutation. Something like that. It's a 2D adventure game, kind of like point and clicky, just about builds itself.
Oh no, you're gonna be so mad when you play this.
It's not like point and click in that sense. It's more like from what I can tell, it's more of like the Nine in the Woodsy type point and click adventure game. It's bills itself as a mutant soap opera about a small town and the supernatural, and it's got a really nice look. It's got some nice music. I've watched some of the trailers, some of the gameplay. It's only a handful or so, about hours long, from the developers. It's being developed by an indie studio called Die Gut Fabrik, based out in Copenhagen, who they haven't had any like big hits or anything. Probably the most noteworthy one is a game called isn't even really a video game. It's called Johann Sebastian Joust, which I see at a lot of conventions. It's just like a game that you play with like the repurposed PlayStation Move controllers, but there isn't really a video game aspect to it. It's really interesting, and it's being published by Akupara Games, who have published games such as Desert Child.
Ooh,
so
I really like Desert Child.
So yeah, this game looks pretty neat. It's on Steam, Apple Arcade, PlayStation, Itch, Game Jolt, GOG. But I figure we'll all probably get it on Itch. But yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sounds good. Oh yeah, I should mention before we leave, my original idea before I came across the Enigma Machine for this episode was Stalker: Shadows of Chernobyl, and I decided not to because I'm pretty sure that game would have driven all of us insane. But I have that in my pocket. I want you all to know that. Russian game jank. I have that.
I have the next pick after Danny, and hey, didn't the Her Story dev just release that new game?
Honestly, I'm pretty sure I can't run it on my computer.
We'll just have to run it in Spirit. I don't know.
Then you better go catch it.
Yeah.
Chlamydia.
Now it's time to beat the mind game. Now it's time to beat the mind